Hi there, I'm super-grandmaster Keti Tsatsalashvili, and in this video I will show you top 5 missed wins in chess history, which will blow your mind. I know many of us has missed a lot of winning chances in our own games, but we're not alone. Even world champions and world's strongest chess players sometimes are missing winning chances. So let's start with our first example. Our first example is the game of great Russian master Mikhail Chigorin against Emanuel Schiffer. As you can see, Black has sacrificed the queen for an initiative and strong attack. At this point, White decided to capture a7 pawn to get closer to the king, which in fact is a blunder and allows Black to win a game on a spot. There is a checkmate within just 5 moves, but this was missed by one of the best chess players of his time. Let's see the winning line. It starts with rook h1 check. This forces knight to capture the rook, and now we have an incredible move, bishop h2. This move invites king to get on h-file, which allows Black to bring another rook on h5. Now, after king g3, we have knight getting into the battle, and no matter where the king goes on g4 or on f4, we do have rook h4 checkmate. Let's come back once again and figure out how this all happened. So, at this point, rook and the bishop are creating a mating net. However, knight is here and controlling h1 square. If we capture the knight, White will capture the bishop back, and there is a runaway square for the king. So this line is not working. Instead, we are getting rid of the knight in a style by sacrificing a rook. And now if rook h8, then knight comes back on g3, and we do have the same position, but we don't have a rook. So instead, bishop h2, which is very hard to spot when you calculate the line, is in fact winning move here, which forces White's king to get on h-file. But more important here is that the rook now comes on h-file with a check. And if king goes backwards, there is a checkmate. That's exactly what Black wanted from the very beginning. But if king comes on g3, we have seen already this line, there will be a checkmate by the rook on h4. So instead of this beautiful line here, Mikhail Chigorin, who was twice a world champion, Wilhelm Stein's challenger, missed this checkmate and he played b6. The game lasted longer and it ended in fact in a draw. Here we have a position between two 2700 rated players, Boris Gelfand and Alexei Shirov. They played this game in the last round of very prestigious tournament, and Boris Gelfand missed a win chances. He played a4. He decided to sacrifice the pawn to distract the bishop from this diagonal. But in fact, there is another move which wins the game. Let me show this one. f5. Very typical breakthrough of this kind of pawn structure. Even though f5 pawn is hanging in 2 ways, none of those ways are working. For instance, if Black takes with e pawn, now White plays e6, bishop takes e6, and White goes all in by h5. This pawn has to be captured, otherwise h6, h7, and h8. Promotion comes on the way, so Black has to take, and now you know the answer, this is g6. Once again, White simply wants to promote the pawn to the queen, so Black has to capture this pawn. White takes the bishop, and here we have very critical moment. Black plays king d8 to reach on a square. The square is where White has to promote to queen, but it is light square and White has dark square bishop. So if Black king gets on e8, it's gonna be a theoretical draw. But White has last resource here by king d5. The idea is to play king c6 and stop king coming to this square. King cannot go to b8 because bishop controls it. King cannot go to b7 because king controls it. And white's plan is simply to push the pawn all the way to the back rank. So this is why white needed this pawn to have still alive and not to sacrifice it. Let's come back at that point and check out what happens after f5. Well, let's finish this line with e takes f5, e6, because here black can take with f pawn. In this case, white will take g6 pawn, and white will push the connected pass pawns forward. And let's make a note here, as black cannot go to f8 thanks to the bishop, neither to f7 thanks to the king, and on the other hand, those pawns are controlled by the bishop. So this is winning endgame. Well, there is another line which can be also interesting. For instance, after g takes f5, white pushes the pass pawn. The idea is to play h6, h7, and the promotion here. So black has to stop this pawn with the bishop, and now the only move which wins the game is g6. White sacrificed the pawn in order to get 2 pawns on this diagonal, and black will have only one move to play, so black cannot really stop this pawn. And here we have a winning endgame. Instead of this, in the game, Boris Gelfand played a4. Alexei Shirov captured this pawn, and after f5, Alexei Shirov found bishop c2, a brilliant move which guards g6 pawn, and white can still take e6 pawn, but this is a theoretical draw, and the game ended in a draw as well. So that's quite a bit upset for Boris Gelfand. But now we're getting to the next example, which in fact happened at the World Championship match. In 2014, the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand was tied until this point. This is round 6, and Magnus Carlsen with white pieces played king d2, which in fact is a terrible blunder, and after making this move, Magnus Carlsen immediately left the board. Vishy Anand could play knight e5, which forces white's rook to take black's rook, and now knight c4 wins another pawn. This is a check. White has to play king d3 to attack the knight, and now black has another intermediate check, knight b2. This knight now is safe. It cannot be attacked by white's king. King has to retreat back, and black can now take the rook. The line can continue to rook h6, rook g2, where black emerges with 2 extra pawns in the winning endgame. It's just a matter of the technique. Instead of this, Vishy Anand went a4, and he lost this game. Magnus Carlsen became a leader of the match, and he managed to win the match as well, and the title. So quite upsetting for Vishy Anand and to his enormous number of fans by this missing win. Now we're going to another example. Once again in the World Championship match, Magnus Carlsen was lucky again that his opponent could not find a winning plan. This game has been played at the World Championship match 2018 between world champion Magnus Carlsen and world champion challenger Fabiano Caruana. Caruana with black pieces managed to win a piece, but Carlsen made his best to complicate the game and ended up in this endgame. It's quite hard to find a winning plan here for black for human perspective. However, chess engines suggest us winning plan, and it starts with bishop h4. This is the only move which wins this game. I was thinking quite some time, why this move only and why not the other moves? And the answer is that black keeps the knight on d4 to attack f5 pawn. So the king has to guard f5 pawn and king cannot be more active. So let's see now the line. White can push the pawn to h6 and white is about to promote this pawn to the queen in just 2 moves. But there is knight c6 or knight f3 moves. With the same idea, black just wants to bring the knight on e5 square. All right, let's see knight c6. And after h7, there is a check. White has to play king h5 to attack the bishop. And now black has a winning move, king g7. This king stops the pawn. And in case if white captures the bishop, now black can also capture the bishop. And the next move is king h7. Of course, this endgame with extra knight is winning. So instead of this, let's try to find something better for white and come back at the point where white could play, for instance, bishop e6 to guard f5 pawn. Now black has check, and after king h7, bishop g5. Black managed to zugzwang the king, and white has only moves with bishop, which is not really helping. So the king, bishop, and the knight trapped the white's king on h7, and now the technique is just like this. Bishop moves away, knight comes on f3. Now black's idea is to target f5 pawn and to win f5 pawn or to win h6 pawn. In case if white tries to run away with the king, king g6 will be met by knight h4. With this check, white cannot guard f5 pawn anymore, and white is losing this pawn. If white continues to play with bishop, for instance, bishop e6, now we go with knight e5. This knight controls g6 square, so king cannot run away. But the most important here is that knight gets on g4 square, where black will take this pawn first. And then black will try to activate the king, get the king on e5, and knight and the king will attack f5 pawn, and the bishop will have to give the move order to white. All these lines are so crazy and so complicated even when you're analyzing with the chess engine. But there was a theoretical chance for Carlsen Caruana to win this game and to become a leader of the match. And we might have today a different story. But our video is about top 5 missed wins in chess history, and this game perfectly well fits in this category. In our final example, the world champion and chess magician from Latvia allowed his opponent, Lars Schneider, to checkmate his king. However, opponent did not see this funny line, but here I am to show you. Here, Tal played e4. The opponent played knight g5 check. Black went king h8. I'll show you later why king g8 is bad move. And after knight f7 check, here Tal made very bad move, king g8. This allows white to play queen h6, queen sacrifice. After bishop h6, knight takes h6, and now rook f8. So black's king is checkmated. Let's come back here at this point. If black tries something else, for instance, rook takes the knight, now there is a check on the back ring, and no matter what black plays here, bishop f8 or rook f8, there will be a still similar checkmate with the rook and the queen. Another funny line that I would love to show you is, for instance, if black just plays queen b2 to guard g7 bishop, then we do have queen h8. Beautiful queen sacrifice. After bishop takes h8, knight h6, checkmate. So let's come back once again from the starting position and check out what happened. So after knight g5, king g8 is a bad move, and I promised you to show you this. After king g8, rook will capture the bishop. White will just take all the defensive forces from black, And then after queen d7, there will be a checkmate because black's king is very weak. So this is not working. However, after knight g5 and king h8, knight f7, here Tal could still save his king by king h7 and to allow his opponent to make a perpetual check and a draw. But he denied this move and he risked and he played king g8. And in fact, he was right. His opponent played here g3 move, and after a long game, Tal here managed to win. So this was our final example, and this was the video of the top 5 missed wins in chess history. Do let me know which one was your favorite missed win and which one do you like the most. I am Women-Grandmaster Keti Tsatsalashvili, and I hope to see you once again on this channel. So make sure that you follow YouTube channel of Chess.com and please come back for another video. See you very soon.